anti-vaxxers can be converted. I'm convinced of that. Our lives depend on this. My name is Leahcim Semaj, and I'm a quantum transformation psychologist. We believe that quantum transformation is indeed possible. We're not talking about incremental changes, but fundamental reboot, which enables people to achieve dramatic improvement in the quality of life. People, yes, can change. Now, I have been tracking these issues for quite some time now. So far, I've recorded 8 lessons from the coronavirus. The laws of the universe is lesson 1. Lesson 2, leadership. Lesson 3, I looked at breath. What happens to our breathing? What have we learned about this? Lesson 4, touch. Lesson 5, the new world of work. Lesson 6, on relationships. Lesson 7, the other pandemic. Beginning now and to come, mental health. And lesson 8, education, total transformation. So this has occupied my mind for quite some time. But now we understand changes are indeed necessary. But there's some serious mistakes we tend to make when we try to change people's behavior. The first is the mistake we make by assuming that people are rational, far from the truth. The second mistake is to assume that people are eager to change. And the third is that we assume that once someone knows the things the way that you know them, they will choose to do what you would do. Beginning here, we really have to rethink how we approach non-vaxxers. Now, one thing we know for sure, where we go from here, what we do is all about you and me, each of us as individuals. The data is clear. Mask, sanitize, social distance, and the vaccine, that's a total package that we're now able to deal with. The evidence supports this. But then, what do we do? We now realize that the coronavirus is like gravity. Gravity doesn't care whether you believe in it or not. It is still here. Beliefs change, but reality persists and people die. We're seeing now we're having a serious pandemic of the unvaccinated. The evidence is clear. Again, the thing we know for sure is that the virus does not like a number of things. One, it doesn't like masking. It doesn't like sanitizing or social distance. And definitely, the virus does not like vaccination. But one thing we realize now is that the road to this thing called herd immunity must go through a number of steps. The third of which is community immunity, right? If the community is not, the nation clearly won't be. The second is family immunity. But the first is your vaccination. So unless we each do our part, we are doing things that will actually slow down the road to herd immunity. It doesn't help us at all. I find this quite amazing because when you see the number of vaccines that have been part of our lives, from tetanus to flu, hepatitis, rubella, measles, whooping cough, mumps, chicken pox, diphtheria, and on, yellow fever. But all of a sudden, we're seeing something totally different. Yes, at every junction, there are 10, 15% of the population who are significant resistors, but we have not seen it like this in quite some time. We are now going through an experiment. We call it the COVID experiment for 2021. On one hand, you have people who take the blue pill. I will take the vaccine. But then you have those who take the red pill. I won't take the vaccine. And here's our problem. If a COVID vaccine is proven safe and effective and available, we are seeing numbers across the world of large numbers of people who are saying, yes, I will take it. In the 90% in China, in the 90s in Brazil, Most modern countries, most democracies, most large countries, the majority of people are on the side that say, yes, I will take the vaccine. Now, there's a paradox. Of the large influential countries, we're seeing that standing out is Russia. Over 25% of people are unwilling. Another 15 to 20% are uncertain. United States, 25% covers the unwilling and uncertain. They stand out quite large in terms of what many countries are now doing. But as I said, China, India, Mexico, Brazil, Spain, Japan are all in the unwilling category, right? Very few people are in the unwilling category. Now, when you come to a place like, say, Jamaica, the latest poll that we're seeing, done August of 2021, 34% say they surely will not take it. 38% are saying they're not sure they will take it. Only 29% are saying, yes, we will take it. So there is a big problem in terms of transformation and conversion there. The data is telling us that there's a serious danger in Vax-Hesitancy. A partially immune population is a fertile breeding ground for new viral variants. Some of the variants to come may even be greater in terms of their negative impact than we're currently experiencing. The result is that we are all at risk. So, what is this conversion? What is this change required of us? Yes, there are persons who we need to change at the individual level. But then, as we look around, there are friends that need to change, family members, employees, co-workers, community. In fact, right across the nation, change is necessary if we are to survive. But standing in the way is a very interesting thing, something called the power of cognitive bias, otherwise known as distortion of judgment. This undermines how the general public makes sense of scientific data. It presents a potential barrier to optimal decision making. One thing we know for sure, no human population is immune to this thing called cognitive bias. These biases may be intensified by the current climate of uncertainty and the public mistrust that pervades our life now. Errors in judgment affect everything we do. And we have come to recognize that there are several cognitive biases behind any vaccination decision that need to be addressed. These cognitive biases are extremely common in most medical decision making. Many individuals believe that their resistance is just something unique to them. But I have news. They are not individual things. In fact, there are 10 cognitive bias that pervades the anti-vax community. 1, conspiracy theory, belief bias. Distorted risk perception bias. Collective good over personal choice bias. Then the reverse, personal choice over collective good bias. We have confirmation bias. We have availability bias. We have the illusion of causality bias. Vaccine distrust bias. The fear of needle bias. And finally, the one I call profiling bias. Now, let's walk through all of these one by one, give you a brief definition of what these are. The one called conspiracy theory bias. A lot of misinformation has been flowing about various theories surrounding the COVID-19 and the vaccines. A conspiracy theory is a worldview that tells us there's some kind of shadowy network of people and they have some very negative intentions. Their plan is to execute mass hoaxes on the public, and it is being done in secret. But one or two people are able to ferret out information and share it with us. These people take a few facts, I will put facts in question mark, and they mix it with a special secret sauce. These worldviews are highly related to a mistrust of science. And a lot of people pass these things on because it is wonderful for them to share these things, because they like to know that they're giving people a choice to get information that otherwise would not be sent to them. The second bias is called distorted risk perception bias. These individuals are very skeptical about any danger that the virus may or may not possess. COVID vaccine is not accepted because to them, the risk of the vaccine seems much greater than the risk of getting seriously ill. When they balance it, no, it's not worth it at all. Having an overly optimistic view about themselves, they have a likelihood that, look, I will experience more negative effects if I was to take this vaccine. I'm doing well now. I'm doing very well. They trust their own perception and experiences more than they trust science. However, an interesting phenomenon we see, once they become seriously ill, or somebody close to them becomes seriously ill, they are one of the first to flip, because distortion risk has now been erased. The third category, collective good over personal choice bias. What's good for everyone? What's good for everyone? Vaccination is considered to be a public good, like national defense, street lighting, health care. The decision to vaccinate is not a personal choice. The individual decision have collective consequences. So the nature of transmission, person to person, proximity pose risk to others. The negative externalities are the main reason for the vaccination push by government and local jurisdiction. So framing vaccines and their impact to others in one's family, one's community, could motivate people who feel strongly that collective good is the most important thing. The collective good. That's important to them. And if they don't see a collective good, how will everybody be benefited from this? How will everybody get well from this? How will everyone be protected? You can't get to them because the collective good bias is in place. The converse you have now is the personal choice over collective good bias. For these individuals, the critical thing, what's good for me? What's best for me? Much of the vaccine effort in the media focused on the need for everyone to do their part to stop the pandemic. If not for themselves, for those they love. However, for some people, they fight against the vaccine because this won't work for them. The concern is for me. The individualist attitude helped by these people lead them to think that it is preferable for individuals to make decisions for themselves, even if others get hurt as a result of this. Let me decide for myself. What I decide is important. What the collective want is secondary. Leave me alone to make my own decision. It does not matter whether my decision affects others or not. That's inconsequential. The next category of bias we'll call confirmation bias. Belief for these people beats out facts. These individuals see what they want to believe. Simple as that. People tend to embrace information that support their belief and reject information that contradict them. So they live in an echo chamber. They socialize with individuals who reinforce whatever it is that they believe. For example, a person who's forever skeptical about vaccine safety would most likely search for information that confirms the bias. Anything that says otherwise, automatically rejected. Confirmation bias makes it difficult for new information to get past the individual. The relative risks of vaccination versus disease to penetrate, no, they won't allow this in because you have to maintain that confirmation. These have to be treated very specially. The sixth group, we have availability bias. These individuals assess events' likelihood by how easily specific outcome come to mind. If you don't see it, feel it, touch it, know it immediately, it's not real. For example, a risk that is familiar, so that vaccine being unsafe, will be seen as more serious than the risk of the disease itself. Vaccine being unsafe, you can conjure it up easily. Many reasons why that could be so. But the disease, you can't see the virus. You don't know that many people who personally have been impacted, at least to this point. The media and social circles are much more likely to focus on these rare occurrences, so an individual can easily recall them. Yes, I know that 10 people got impacted by the vaccination. I know that somebody took the vaccination and died the next day. Information available. Biased assessment of risk can negatively influence how we respond to health risk. That's the reality. The seventh category we have, we call this illusion of causality bias. You know, a lot of people didn't do very well in maths and definitely not in statistics. The illusory causality is a belief that there's a causal relationship between two events that are definitely unrelated, but they don't see that. People generally aren't great at reasoning objectively about uncertainty as you go about your daily life. Or intuitive mind extract causality from coincidence all the time. Example, people may decline immunization due to false claim that vaccine could alter their genes, make their body magnetic, cause cancer, cause infertility. And they make these kinds of causal connection and they lock them in and they believe them. These beliefs lead people to use any incident of vaccine side effect to confirm their bias, a special category. The eighth group, vaccine distrust bias. Some people will not accept any vaccine at all. They worry about safety, unknown side effects. Some are suspicious about pharmaceutical companies develop these shots just to make money. They tend to believe that these companies do not have the public's best interests in the mind. So for them, generally vaccines, total distrust. Always have this group. Group number 9, very interesting one, fear of needle bias. A lot of these are men, big, strong, tough men. As hard as the anti-vax people may try to pretend that this isn't a factor, it definitely is. Attitudes are then created in such a way as to receive permission to avoid the trigger of the fear. I heard a video, description where Eric Clapton actually admitted that at the cornerstone of his anti-vax sentiment, that he is deathly afraid of needles all his life. All of that bluster about the evil of science could be covered just for this admission that it is perceived as a psychological weakness, which they do not want to confront. A terror, a dread, a fear of needles. And finally, number 10, we call this one profiling bias. There are some people who just like to stand out, who just like to be seen, who just like to be different. So when it comes to the vaccine, these nonconformists want to go against the trend because it's part of their identity. No, I don't go with the crowd. Whatever you want, no, I don't go with that. Their anti-science belief established them as someone who is skeptical of consensus. And anything that anyone would try to tell them what to think or how to think, they automatically go against it. So we have 10 different, but at times overlapping biases that actually prevent us from getting to the place we need in terms of the persons accepting the vaccine. One thing we know for sure is that there's a map of change. When the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the pain of change, change tends to happen. I'm not so sure we can wait out the pain. The numbers are increasing, the deaths are increasing. It's horrible. Here ends part 1 of this discourse. You can contact me, info above or beyond JM. Telephone numbers are available on the screen. And the objective is to help us get past this. Anti-vaxxers can be converted. End of part 1.